Hello and welcome to another episode of the Thyroid Hotline. My name is Missy Beavers. I am your host. I have a master's degree in nutrition. I specialize in gut and thyroid health. And I'm joined today by my friend and also a success coach in my program, Stacey Price. Hi, Stacey.
Hi.
Happy to have you today. We are
Thank you for having
also,
me.
yes, thank you. We're also joined live by some women who are here with us. And to the ladies that are here, please drop your questions in the chat as we are talking. Stacey's here to field questions and to bring them up so that we can answer those in real time. That's part of the whole goal of the Thyroid Hotline is that so we can have the interaction live in real time without waiting months and months and months to see your doctor. Just have your questions brushed off because I think we've all had that experience, right, Stacey?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes. Stacey and I are here because we have also walked the thyroid road for many, many decades and are excited to share things that have worked for us and things that work for our clients and then answer your questions. So we have a question that we've been getting a lot lately. And we want to address this one first on the call today. And then again, for the women that are here, please add your questions to this and drop them in the chat. But Stacey, do you want to give us our first question, the one that we love answering? It is a favorite
One with
question.
answering. Yes. So this is from Tummy Troubles in Tennessee.
Love it.
Yeah, I love the name. Will gluten really help my digestive issues if I cut it out?
Yes, that's the answer. We're done.
Okay, perfect. You know what? And I have had that answer before. Just cut out gluten.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any reasoning? Nope. Probably just can't handle it.
Yeah. Just don't eat it.
Yeah,
This is such a hot button. And
it
I'm
is.
so grateful for this question. Thank you for this question. We get this on my social media, I would say at least 2 to 3 times a day. People ask this question. And it's because many doctors and practitioners, but especially social media, is now telling women with thyroid issues to cut gluten out. And like you said, Stacey, we can read that anywhere. We can read that guidance or that instruction anywhere, but where's the why? Why are we doing this? And I'm a huge believer in explaining the why because our brains better adhere to things when we understand why we're doing it. Thank you for that question. Let's talk about why. Gluten is a protein that is in wheat. It's also in barley, it's in rye, it's in grain products. And this protein is not a problem for most people. However, for sisters who have Hashimoto's or Graves', which are autoimmune forms of thyroid disease, gluten can present a problem. And the reason that that happens is that the protein in these products looks very similar to our own thyroid hormone. I didn't bring an image today, but we have one that we use in my program to show the sisters in the program. But it looks like a party hat. It looks like a circle with a party hat on it. That is a gluten protein. And then the thyroid hormone looks very similar with a little bit different party hat. So they're two little proteins and hormones hanging out at a party that look very similar. So why would that be a problem? Well, it shouldn't be. In a gut that is healthy, you can consume gluten. Your body will digest the gluten. The gluten will then exit through the potty like it should, and nothing detrimental will happen. But when you have autoimmune issues going on, which Hashimoto's and Graves mean that your immune system is activated, your immune system is inflamed. And the number one reason that's happening is because of gut inflammation. So if you have gut inflammation going on, you're going to have immune system chaos. And that is because 70 to 80% of the immune cells in our body are made in the gut. So if you have this gut inflammation going on, there's a high chance that gluten is not going to stay in the gut. So what can happen is gluten can leak out of the gut. And this is where the term leaky gut has become very popular. And it can essentially end up outside of the gut where it doesn't belong in its undigested form. So if we have a gluten protein outside of the gut, irritating the immune system, what's going to happen is the immune system is going to respond the way that it should to any attack. It is going to create antibodies towards it. It's going to activate defenses to get it out. The body does the same thing if you have strep. The body does the same thing if you have parasites. If there's something in the body that is not you, the immune system is going to go take care of it. So gluten is not you. So the immune system says, whoa, this doesn't belong here. We better take care of that. And it does. It's fabulous. It does a great job. Well, then the immune system now is going to go search and destroy anything that looks like that little party attending protein. And like we talked about, the thyroid hormone looks very similar to that protein. So in an inflamed and angry and overzealous immune system, it can then go and it can target thyroid tissue. And it's doing that with your best interest in mind. It honestly believes that this is an invader. So that is the connection between gluten and thyroid issues. What we know from the research is that women with autoimmune forms of thyroid disease, when they cut out gluten, we can see pretty significant and quick drop in antibodies. So these are women who have had antibodies that are just continually rise and rise and rise. And the doctors, Western medicine doesn't really have an approach for that. There's no pill that they can give you to bring down antibodies. Therefore, it's just something they kind of watch. And I take that back. A lot of doctors won't even watch it. They'll pull your antibodies once. And then if you request to get your antibodies drawn again, they'll say, oh, that marker is not important, or we've already checked it once. Stacey, have you had this experience with antibodies?
Yes. Yeah. Often they don't want to check anything but TSH and antibodies. Once it's done, it's done. You have it for life. It's
Yeah.
never going to get better. So why recheck it?
Bingo. So that is the Western medicine line right now. If we check your antibodies and they're positive, and I'm putting that in quotes, positive would mean they're above the range, and therefore now you have a diagnosis. They've given you a diagnosis of Hashimoto's or Graves'. In the Western medical approach, now that you have that diagnosis, we never need to check it again. It's just you have it, and now you have it. And it's because there's no approach to remedy it. So if there's no medication we can give you to lower your antibodies, there's really no need to check those numbers. So I walked through this personally. Stacey, I think you've been through this with antibodies, right? Fighting
Yes.
to get them tested and requesting the testing.
Fighting to get,
And yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, it's a fight. But when I would get mine checked, they were consistently rising. And it's devastating because in my case, at least, I'll talk for me and you can share your experience. I mean, I was
Mhm.
walking through this in my teenage years and in my early 20s, and I was doing what the doctor was telling me. I was eating the diets they were telling me, the low fat, Snackwell's cookies, was doing the things that they said, and was taking the medication that they were prescribing. My weight kept increasing, my gastric upset. I was having chronic constipation, was having skin issues, acne, hair loss, all the thyroid symptoms. I was doing the things they were telling me to do. But when we would check antibodies, they would just keep ticking up, ticking up, ticking up. And this was before the internet. So I didn't really have a Google to go consult about what do these levels even mean? What's going on here? So I really didn't push for it until later, like in my later 20s when I started understanding, and also when the internet started helping us know what levels and labs we needed to check. But yeah, my antibodies just kept climbing. And I would ask doctors about that, and they would say, oh, well, you have Hashimoto's. So they're going to be there. They're just going to be there. You have Hashimoto's. And there was never a solution. Stacey, will you share your experience with antibodies?
Yeah, for sure. So I had diagnosed hypothyroidism at 24. And at 28, I had had my third baby and I was a wreck. I was severely depressed, exhausted, hair falling out by the clumps in the shower. I just remember. And I mean, that can happen after having babies too. But for me, it was definitely thyroid related. And I remember going to the endocrinologist, and I'm putting that in quotes because he was the endocrinologist to see. And he said, I think you have Hashimoto's. Well, I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
And so he explained it. And basically, there's no cure. You take a pill, that's it. And at that time, we did have the Google machine, but thyroid information was not what it is today. It was very dismal. It was basically take the pill or die a slow death.
Yeah.
And I just remember reading that and thinking, I just felt so defeated and so sad. Um, and and after that, I didn't really have any hope. So I didn't really look into it because it seemed like a final diagnosis.
Yeah. Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes, I resonate with that. And sisters listening that are here with us, let us know in the comments if you've experienced this and if you resonate with this, because we hear this from clients all the time that there are women all over the globe having the same experience. And it's because I don't fault the doctors for this. It's because for their training, there's nothing we can do about antibodies. Therefore, why check them? You have the disease is there. So what do we do now? So in my own story, picking up where I left off, I had the antibodies present. I knew I had a Hashimoto's. And then I started having even more severe digestive upset. And I had done a study abroad in Chile, and I gained 30 pounds in 1 month, 30 pounds in a month.
Wow.
And that wasn't unusual to gain weight in my history with the hypothyroidism Hashimoto's. So a lot of doctors were just like, yeah, well, you studied abroad, you ate a bunch of junk. Yeah, that makes sense. But that's not what had happened. So we bumped from doctor to doctor and finally ended up at a gastroenterologist. And celiac disease was new at that point. Like they were just starting, not new. They created a disease. They just started checking for it at that point. And I remember it wasn't really on the radar, but they ran tests and I was positive for 2 of the 3 markers. And what was unfortunate is they didn't diagnose me at that instant. They said, well, you got 2 of the 3, so have a nice life. So I went on with this extra weight and severe constipation, like going once a week, every other week. No solutions from the gastroenterologist, kept suffering. And then 2 years later, I went to a naturopathic doctor who she helped me realize that within Western medicine, if you have one of the 3 markers, that is a concern for celiac and a parameter for diagnosis for a lot of Western models now. So when I cut gluten out at that point, what do you know? Everything got better. It was just a miracle. And it's unfortunate to me that I had the experience that so many women have where a doctor says, no, that can't be it. And so you continue feeling sick and looking for other solutions where if I would have just cut the gluten out at that point, I would have felt a whole lot better. And so when I pulled out the gluten, well, my digestive system got a whole lot better. The constipation issues got better. The thyroid symptoms got marginally better. But what was really cool is my antibodies completely dumped. So all of these years watching them creep, the next time that I finally convinced a doctor to test them, they had come down. And I was in the thousands at some point, and I'd come down to the hundreds. And right now I'm at negative antibodies. There's nothing to detect, which was really cool. But that is such a good example. And we see this happen with clients all the time too, who are consuming gluten, have an autoimmune disease, pull out the gluten. And what that does for the immune system is it pulls off that one little trigger that can be creating antibody attacks. So it says the immune system, oh, good, we can just pull that one out of the arsenal, and that helps those antibodies come down. What was your experience? Did you pulled gluten out, right, Stacey?
I did. Yes. My experience, and I come from a generation where we just didn't talk a whole lot about how we felt. And that includes the digestive system.
Yeah.
So for me, living my whole life, I thought, after every meal, you feel uncomfortably full. Your tummy puffs up. We definitely didn't talk about bowel movements, but, you're supposed to have one every day. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, when I did your program 2.5 years ago, and we started talking about the gut and how things are, and I'm like, oh, well, okay, that's not right then. It's not supposed to be like this. And I did pull gluten out. And I had been experimenting with taking gluten out for a while, but I didn't know why.
Yeah.
So it didn't really resonate with me and it never stuck. So I would pull it out for some months at a time. Did I feel better? Probably a little. Yeah, I noticed the bloat, but it didn't really click with me until I went through the program and I pulled out entirely. And I thought, oh, okay, I understand now. This explanation was a big light bulb moment for me. The explanation you just gave about leaky gut and why it triggers the Hashimoto's that I had. And I did just recently pull it out again. Just because I went back a little bit,
Yeah.
I'm only human, but
Yeah.
realized that no, it's not for me. And I just am more comfortable. My stomach hurts less. Or it doesn't hurt at all when I take gluten out. I don't have the digestive upset. And, my Hashimoto's my markers are also in remission or
Yeah.
not there, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Doctors don't believe a lot in remission with Hashimoto's, but the antibodies are clear indicators that I do not have Hashimoto's any longer. So,
So exciting. And
yeah.
yeah, that's the most thrilling thing for those of us that have had antibodies high for a long time, to see them low and to know that it's something we can control. That
Mhm.
with our food, that is something we can have a bit of control with. Now, does this happen to every woman that pulls gluten out? No. And that is the work that we do, because there are other things that will trigger your gut, that will trigger the immune system, that will create this chaos. Gluten is just a really easy one to
Mhm.
kind of troubleshoot without in-depth testing. So it is something that I do recommend for our sisters with Hashimoto's and Graves. There are types of thyroid issues that aren't autoimmune, where the immune system is not involved, just standard hypothyroidism or perhaps a goiter, cysts, nodules, things like that, where the immune system is not involved. In those cases, maybe you don't need to pull out gluten. Maybe that's not an issue. But there is one other thing with gluten that I have a bit of a soapbox on, but it's the way that gluten is grown in our country. And the thing about the farming of gluten, it is highly chemically laden. Glyphosate is sprayed on these crops, and glyphosate is a pesticide sprayed on these crops. And the research shows that the glyphosate has no impact on humans. And believe it or not, the research is true. If you are looking at how it impacts human cells, if you just follow the research, it doesn't really have an impact on human cells. But what it does do is it completely destroys our gut bugs. So it does tear through gut flora, and it creates issues with the balances of good and bad bacteria. That creates an opportunity for this gut imbalance that will contribute to leaky gut. So it's really, really fun for me, at least, to dig into the research, because you've probably heard some of these same debates, like people saying that, gluten's fine, and people saying, no, gluten isn't fine, and people saying, no, glyphosate is not toxic, and other people saying, no, it is toxic. And you have to find the right research that you're looking for. So that's my soapbox is I'm okay to believe what they're saying, that like it has no human impact. Sure, it does impact the bugs in our gut that have a human impact. And that's actually the same way that it works on the bugs that are attacking these crops. Is it basically destroys the bugs from the inside out. So that's great for the crop. It means the crop's not going to be attacked by these pests. Not so great for the human gut. So that's a bit of a tangent, and one that I do like to explain, because that's the issue with gluten in America and North America, because we do have people who either they're overseas or they travel overseas and they eat bread, especially in Europe, and they're like, I didn't have any issues. I didn't have any problems with my gut. Everything was fine. Yes, because these chemicals are banned. They're not allowed in these countries. And so that's my other soapbox with gluten. Gluten itself may not be a problem. The way it's grown, the way it's processed, the way it's chemically laden in our country makes it an issue. When I explain this, the next question becomes, okay, what if I make my own? What if I make my own bread and source my own flour? Yes, that works really well for a lot of sisters. And I am a huge fan of sourdough, and especially in the years since COVID, where everyone now lives in an artisanal sourdough bakery. We all do, right? Or we all
Right.
can turn our kitchen into one. Sourdough is really cool because what it does is it ferments the gluten. So as it's fermenting, those good bacteria break down and digest the proteins. So if you ferment your sourdough, and it's interesting because the traditional fermented sourdough could be fermented up to 2 weeks. And they found that those starter cultures that are fermented for 2 weeks, it's basically gluten-free. So if you ferment your sourdough longer, you're going to get the good bacteria in that process that digests the proteins and makes the bread more digestible. Is that me saying that if you have autoimmune disease, you can eat sourdough bread? No, because again, going back to the sourcing of ingredients in our country, it's an issue. But depending on where you live, there's a lot of really cool bakeries just throughout the country that have sourdough, gluten-free sourdough products or long fermented sourdough with ancient grains. Those options can be really cool. In San Francisco, there is a bakery that does long-aged sourdough, and they have a gluten-free variety. I can't think of their name right now, but if you use the Google machine, I used to order from them. It's so good. Anyway, there's options. I don't know how we got on the tangent of bread, but bread is good. We love bread.
Because everybody loves bread. That's why.
Everybody loves bread, but if you have an autoimmune condition, your gut may not love the bread.
Right.
For sisters that are present, if you have any questions on this conversation with gluten, please pop them in the chat, because I want to walk this conversation toward leaky gut, since they tie together. So if you're here, drop them and Stacey will let me know. But I mentioned earlier, gluten may not be the only trigger. And this is why testing is so important, because like we talked about, when we go to the doctor for thyroid issues, and there's over 200 things that can go wrong when the thyroid's not working. When we go and we list off even 24 of the 200 things that could be going wrong, the doctors generally only check TSH. So that's telling us how the brain is signaling the thyroid to work. That's not a helpful marker. What we really want to know is the thyroid producing hormones? Is it responding to that TSH? Is it able to make T4, T3? But then are we able to convert the T4 that's made into the usable T3? And that's the step where most women are broken. Perhaps the message is coming from the brain to the thyroid just fine. Your TSH could be completely fine. Maybe you're making T4 from the thyroid gland just fine, but are you converting it to the usable T3? And that conversion happens in the gut and the liver. So that is where the gut comes in. This is where leaky gut becomes really, really important for thyroid health. If there are imbalances in the gut. So we talked about inflammation from gluten. That can be a big one. If there's inflammation from gluten going on, that will create a problem. If there's infections like yeast, candida is a big problem for a lot of our thyroid sisters. That's the yeast that's responsible for chronic yeast infections, for athlete's foot, for yellow toenails, armpit rashes, dandruff. A lot of people deal with candida. We've had those symptoms at some point in our life. But that can take up residence in the gut. It can create issues. Parasites are a common issue, bacteria, viruses. So if we have these imbalances in our gut, what those little bugs do is they eat away at the gut lining and they create these perforations, or what has been termed leaky gut. Does this happen with every infection? No. And I want to be clear for that, because I think there's a lot of misinformation right now in the socials, just diagnosing people with leaky gut. It's leaky gut. It's leaky gut. If you have this problem, it's leaky gut. I don't like that, because you can chase that rabbit hole and it might not be the problem. So I really encourage testing, because for probably 5 years, I believed that I had leaky gut and was chasing those protocols. And that was not the problem. I needed to specifically target what was creating the leaks in the gut. So with leaky gut, oftentimes you'll see people promoting, bone broth or things to seal up the gut, different probiotics or different long laundry list of supplements. So you'll see people doing that, and that's a mistake that I made. A mistake that I see clients make is they fall into the I've got leaky gut, I need to seal my gut, and so I'm going to take all of these things, and I'm not getting better. And I've made the mistake as a practitioner in the past of doing that as well. My approach now is to find out why is the gut potentially leaking? And there's no real test for leaky gut right now. There's some markers we can check that will suggest it, but there's no like, hey, you have leaky gut test. We can, however, find out if there are these things going on. So if people have a high mold burden, if they've got high fungus, bacteria, yeast, parasites, if there's overgrowths of those things, then we know that the gut is inflamed, and we know that there could be some leaky gut going on. But then the marker that helps on the opposite side of that are those antibodies. So if we see you've got a ton of imbalances in your gut and you've got antibodies in the thousands, And that's an extreme case. A lot of sisters ride, in the hundreds. But if you've got antibodies that are high, that's a really good correlation that, hey, these imbalances in your gut are probably making your immune system upset. They're probably contributing to those antibodies. And that's what we focus on in my program, is making sure, first of all, that we get the testing right up front so we can see what's happening in the gut. Then we can address those specific things instead of guessing at, okay, well, maybe you need some glutamine to seal up the gut, or have you tried aloe, or you need to drink more bone broth and eat sourdough. Those
Yeah.
things that you can see preached all over the internet, because those things are helpful if they apply to you. But in most cases, I see that it doesn't apply because the same symptoms can masquerade with different issues. Stacey, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I do. Actually, can we answer this question first? And then I have a
Yes.
question for you as well. If you have cut out gluten and want to try it again, what is the best way to reintroduce it? Great question.
Yeah, that is a good question. So you're wanting to see if you can tolerate it. Is that, I'm understanding that correctly? So you've had it out for a while.
Yes.
Now you want to reintroduce it and try it. Yeah, there's a lot of different methods. The ones that I like is to do a little bit of the food with each meal for a couple of days. So if you're going to reintroduce gluten, and of course, I need to disclaim, I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. Please work with a practitioner. But what we've often done with clients in the past is to have a little bit of whatever that food is. So we're talking about gluten in this scenario, a little bit of gluten with lunch, breakfast, lunch, dinner for a couple of days. Then you're going to stop it and watch what happens. And this process requires a lot of honesty. And this is where I see most people messing this up, myself included, because we introduce the food. Let's say we introduce it on a Monday. We have that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then by Thursday and Friday, we're like super tired. We're screaming at the people in our world. We're having headaches. But then we say things like, oh, well, it is a really stressful time, or I didn't sleep well last night. That's why I have this headache. And we're not honest with ourselves and connecting. I reintroduce this food and I'm having these symptoms. I know I've been through this, and I am the best justifier in the world to be like, oh, well, it's windy today. So that's probably why I have a raging headache and I'm bloated. It's the wind,
Yep,
because we just want it to work so bad.
we do. And I've been there too. And that's where I was at this past time. I'm like, I need to be honest with myself. I don't need to justify. I just want to feel better. So I get
Oh
that.
my goodness. Yes. Yes, we lie to ourselves, but
Yes.
yeah, I had that experience with eggs when I was really inflamed. I had to pull eggs out. And
Mm.
when I pulled eggs out, it was so funny. It was like 3 days in, my teeth, I felt like my teeth were all loose or falling out, or there was like air going through them. And it was such a weird experience because I was like, I feel better. I'm less inflamed. I'm less bloated, but what's going on with my teeth? And I was able to floss between them. And I
Oh.
realized that my gums had been chronically inflamed and I didn't know because I'd been eating eggs every day forever.
Mhm.
And that was such a subtle, I didn't even expect that, but it was so subtle. Like I remember sitting there and feeling air go between my teeth. Like, what?
Yeah.
I hadn't experienced that. So I pulled them out for 3 months. And this is when I was doing the AIP diet, which is the autoimmune paleo. A lot of women will fall into this diet when they're having autoimmune issues, or a lot of women that we work with. They get backed into this diet where they pull out more and more foods, hoping to calm down their immune system. And I fell in the same pit they did. So I pulled out eggs. I was already off gluten because of celiac disease, but pulled out dairy, eggs, nightshades, nuts. You're pulling out anything that could potentially trigger your immune system. And I did feel better. I did, but it was a very hard diet to follow. And as someone master's degree holding nutritionist, I will tell you I was undernourished. There wasn't enough foods that I enjoyed or foods that I liked to be able to get the nutrients I needed. So anyway, pulled the eggs out. Now I'm going to reintroduce them. I add them back in. Immediately, my gums swell up. Immediately.
Wow.
And you better believe I lied to myself. So I was like, it couldn't be that. No, it's probably because I took my probiotic at the same time. That's got to be it. It's got to be it. even though I've been taking the probiotic the same time right? So it's
Right.
like, you just want that so bad. And so I tried them for a couple weeks, was super inflamed. This actually was in my time of really seeking for answers. And I'm grateful this happened, because I reached a point where I was like, then when can I eat eggs again? And I was working with a practitioner. I asked her that question. She's like, never. And I have a problem with that. I had a big problem with that, especially because of my education. Eggs are so healthy and they've got all these nutrients and the body needs them. And why can't I eat these? So I started searching for other answers. And this is what I do now. This is exactly why I do what I do. I started to ask the question, why can't my gut digest eggs? What is the problem in my gut? Because I don't want to believe the eggs are the problem. So that's where I dug into understanding how we digest foods in the gut. And the way that foods are digested relies heavily on the balance of flora in our gut. So
Mhm.
if we've got these pathogens, like I was saying, if we've got a high burden of mold or candida or yeast or fungus or bacteria, it's going to change the way that we digest the foods. It's also going to create inflammation and potentially leaks that change the way the food is absorbed and utilized. Is that a food problem? Not at all. That is a gut problem. And as a small side topic, this is why I don't recommend IgG food testing. We have a lot of sisters that do this. I did it myself. But when the gut is inflamed and you go and get these food tests done, you're going to see all of the foods that you're eating most frequently are going to show up on that test. And that's because your gut's inflamed. Therefore, it's creating antibodies to the foods that you eat most frequently. It's
Mhm.
not a food problem, it's a gut inflammation problem. That happened to me personally. And that's how I kept getting backed further and further into a corner where my list of tolerated foods became like lemon juice and carrots, because all the other things I was eating. And then I would pull those foods out, go get a retest, and then the foods I'd switch to would show up on the test. So it's really frustrating. And I'm not alone in this. We have sisters that experience this a lot.
Mhm.
Which is why I don't personally do that testing. I'm more interested in what imbalances do you have in your gut that are creating the issues. So in my case, strep was a huge issue for me, and I'd had strep for 2 years straight as a teenager, strep throat. I knew I had issues with strep bacteria. Well, I had it living in my gut. It was creating a lot of issues. I had some viruses that were creating issues that were reacting to the eggs. So some specific pathogens will react to foods differently. Is it the food that's the problem? No, it's the pathogen. So when we took care of those pathogens, when I got on a protocol specific to what was going on in my gut, I was able to add eggs back in pretty quickly. And I actually have air between my teeth now. I can floss between my teeth and I'm eating eggs. So it's a really good example of how, when we can identify the root problem and we can address that, whatever imbalances are creating it, we don't have to demonize the food anymore. We can deal with the actual problem.
Yeah, I have a question. There's a little confusion sometimes. Okay, we're working on the gut, but when are we going to start working on the thyroid?
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
It's a good question. So, we have been trained to think of medicine as different parts of our body. Like, we're going
Mhm.
to go to the thyroid doctor, we're going to go to the heart doctor, the kidney doctor, the hormone doctor. Everything is farmed out into different specialties. So, I think we've been trained to think that way. Okay, I'm going to work on this thing and then I'm going to work on this thing. And such a good question, because as we've been talking about today, the thyroid is a response organ. So it responds to what it's told. The brain tells it to make hormones, it makes hormones. Those hormones then are converted in different tissues in the body, in the gut, the liver, cells. It's all a response. So when we fix the gut, we fix the communication to the thyroid. If the gut is inflamed or leaky, if it's got imbalances, the messages that are going to the brain and also in that conversion process are going to be mixed up. And that's where we see, like we've been talking about, that's where we see high antibodies. Those antibodies can attack thyroid tissue. That makes it so thyroid tissue can't produce hormones as well. The other thing that we see frequently are those imbalances in the gut make it so you don't absorb your nutrients. So you might be eating the world's most perfect diet. You might be eating a spotless, perfect autoimmune paleo diet like I was doing, where you are religiously weighing and measuring and purchasing products and making sure that they're naturally sourced from the Himalayas where they were prayed over by a monk. And you might be getting the best possible products and you're not getting better. And that again goes back to what's going on in the gut, inflammation in the gut, where you're not absorbing these nutrients. And if you're not absorbing the nutrients, well, your thyroid then can't even make the hormones. So everything goes back to the gut. And that was said thousands of years ago. Hippocrates said that all disease begins in the gut. And thousands of years ago, that's where they would start. If people had any dis-ease, so any uneasiness in their body, they would start by addressing the gut. We've gotten so far away from that. And Western medicine just now is starting to circle back. They're starting to say, well, wait, why is the gut so important? Oh, because the immune system sits right there. Oh, maybe we should pay attention. Maybe we should listen. And we're starting to see more of a shift in this direction, which social media is reflecting that. I'm seeing this all over social media all the time. People focusing on the gut, making sure that the gut is working, probiotics for the gut, like I was saying, all these sealers for the gut. So anyway, we get lost in that idea that we fix the gut and now we're going to work on the thyroid. But that's the beauty, is we fix the gut and now the underlying triggers that were preventing the thyroid from working are gone. Therefore, the thyroid can work. And in a lot of cases of the women that we work with, it never was a thyroid problem. It was a gut imbalance problem that was manifesting in the thyroid. And for all the years that you continue to focus on the thyroid, and that I'm talking to myself now, for 28 years, I focused only on the thyroid. The more time we spend focusing on the thyroid, we lose the search for what is really causing the thyroid to have the problem in the first place. And so that's why I like to start with the gut, because it is where all our disease begins.
Yeah. And let's just talk about real quick women with no thyroid, because I get pushback. Well, I don't even have a thyroid. How could you even help me?
Yes, I love that. And
Yeah.
we have many women in our program who have all, part, or none of their thyroid. Many sisters who have had their thyroid removed because of cysts or nodules or cancer. I was raised by a mother who had the bulk of her thyroid removed because of a cyst nodule. So yes, I am a firsthand witness of what happens when the thyroid gland is removed. With these women, the thyroid gland is removed, and then doctors tell them that all they're going to do is take a pill every day for the rest of their lives, which is true. That is going to be true. If you have no thyroid gland, you're going to need this medication to supply what the gland was supposed to make. But where we see people, when they come to our program, these women have had their thyroid removed, some of them decades ago, some of them, recently, but they've had it removed. They're taking the pills. They don't feel any better. And for a lot of them, they feel worse. And that is because we never investigated the underlying cause. So if you have these imbalances in the gut, like we're talking about, they absolutely can cause nodules. They absolutely can contribute to cysts or to the immune imbalances that allow cancers to grow. When you take the gland out, it doesn't address the underlying triggers. We didn't do anything to investigate the gut. We just took out the gland. So now you're taking a pill to replace the hormones that your thyroid was supposed to make. But if your gut's inflamed, you may not be absorbing the full potential of that pill. And that is where women continue to struggle. Or if you've got a lot of these gut imbalances that are inflaming the liver, you won't convert the pill to the usable form. So you'll get lots of this T4 hormone from the pill, levothyroxine, synthroid, tyrosine. These are all T4 medications. You'll get massive amounts of T4, but because of the gut inflammation and potentially the liver issues that come with it, you don't convert T4 to T3. Therefore, you feel like garbage, you're scraping your way through life, and you're saying, what can I do to feel better? So we have women all the time, huh, Stacey? These are some of my favorite cases of women who had the thyroid removed, never really understood why the thyroid stopped working to begin with, why they had to have their thyroid removed, never addressed that cause. And when we can do the testing, when we can find out what's going on, when we address those things, they can reclaim a quality of life that's really great. And then work with their doctor to find the right meds that work for them, the right types of meds, the right dosing, so that they can have a beautiful, beautiful life. You can have a happy life with no thyroid.
Yeah, that's a special place in my heart right there because a lot of women suffer. And I know we get stuck on, oh, I have to take this pill. I have to take this pill. But when they realize that now they can take the pill and it's fully working for them and it brings back a good quality of life, that makes my heart so happy because you and I both know how miserable it is to have thyroid disease and the exhaustion and all the things that come along with it. And when, they say take this pill and then it doesn't work, but then we can help women to correct their gut imbalances and the pill does work for them and they can start to have that, energy back, that zest for life. That is just amazing to me. I love that.
I love it too. And it's such an honor to work with these cases and to get the right testing that helps us identify that. Yeah, it's a blessing. I really enjoy cases like that. So thank you for
Yeah.
bringing that up. That's such a good thing. All right, to sisters that are here, if you want to pop any questions, we're going to wrap this up, but we want to make sure you get your questions answered. And thank you. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it when we get people attending live. It's always fun. What have we got,
Okay.
Stacey?
Okay. So, how long on average does it take to nail down whatever the culprit is that's causing the symptoms?
Love that question. So within my program, every woman that comes into the program starts with the organic acids test. That is my favorite test. It's a urine test, comes to your house, you pee in a cup, freeze it, send it back to the company. And that test shows us over 75 markers of things that could be going wrong with the gut. So we're talking about those pathogens I named today. It shows us liver function. It shows us adrenal function. It shows us if you're absorbing your vitamins and minerals. It gives us clues about your neurotransmitters. So that talks about mood, anxiety, depression, those things that often come with thyroid issues. So with one simple test that you can do at home, we can find these imbalances and then we can tailor specifically what you need to work on. And I love this test because we've done over 1,000 of these tests now, and I've never had two tests come back the same. I've never created two protocols the same. And it's because every single woman has a unique experience. And this is why, like I was saying earlier, this is why the canned protocols for like, do the AIP diet, do a candida diet, do SIBO, they don't work because they're based on guessing and they are cookie cutter templates. So once we can identify specifically for you what your issue is, then we can target it. And the question was how long? So that test takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get results. So women get the results within the first month of being with us. And then on the average, the research says it takes about 3 months to balance pathogens in the gut. So that's why we do a 3-month protocol in my program. Does it take that long to feel better? No. Most women feel better within the first couple of weeks, huh, Stacey?
For sure. Yes.
Yeah. Once we can target and we start addressing what's going on, yeah, people notice improvements really quickly.
Yeah,
Thank you for that question. That's a great question.
for sure. So, what are some great foods to help your gut flora?
Oh, love that. So this this is where it gets loaded. I often say I have a master's degree in nutrition and I hate talking about food. I hate it. I don't talk about food very often, do I, Stacey?
No, you don't.
I don't. And it's because there is no one size fits all.
Mhm.
And I will tell you reasons why. I can't really give like you should eat these things because it depends on the gut. But in general, and this is a very generalized approach, protein is very, very, very important. And that is because the gut lining is made from amino acids, and that is in protein foods. So I prefer animal proteins because they have the full profile of amino acids. But just like we were talking about on this call earlier, protein is grown in our country in somewhat toxic ways. So when I say protein, I mean if you can get clean source protein, organic proteins, especially if you can get locally, that's fantastic. Do your best is what I always like to say with protein. Do your best. Protein is great. Eat protein. Love protein. And then a variety of colors from fruits and vegetables. They all carry different nutrients that help restore gut lining, and different gut bugs in the gut eat different plants. So if we're eating just, the same foods over and over again, perhaps some of our good bacteria in the gut that really loves cabbage or carrots or broccoli or Brussels sprouts, they're not getting the foods that they need to thrive. So I'm a big promoter of variety, of getting lots of colors. And then beyond that, that's where testing comes in, because where I've seen things backfire, this actually is going to become a what not to eat segment. Thank you for asking what to eat. Let's talk about what not to eat. Where I say things backfire is people are on social media. I'm on social media. I'm not lost on the fact that you're here live today with me because you saw this on social media, and thank you. The problem with social media, though, is that we have a lot of people just shouting things and telling you to make your own bone broth and drink it and take these probiotics and drink this kombucha and do these fermented foods. And all of those things are great. I love those things. I mean, I've spent years of my life researching those things for my master's degree. But the problem becomes if your gut is inflamed and your gut is in a state where you've got a lot of imbalances, those foods may make things worse. And I've seen this happen with clients in the past. One comes to mind where she was making her own fermented food, her own sauerkraut, her own kombucha. She was drinking bone broth. She was so inflamed, and it was because of the histamine reaction. All of those things have really high histamines. And she wasn't feeling better. She was having heavy periods with clots. She was having headaches. She was having issues with anxiety and depression, weight gain. Well, we run her testing, and she had a bunch of yeast and mold in her gut already. So adding these foods into her diet were just adding on to that load that she already had. And when you have a lot of yeast and mold in your gut, those produce histamines. So then you add foods with histamines, and then you have these reactions. So for her, does she mean she has to quit eating those foods forever? No, it means we want to figure out the imbalances going on. So we got a specific protocol for her to address those issues. She was able to make a few diet modifications. Anyway, her response was really dramatic and really quick. It was within a month that she was feeling so much better. Weight had come down, mood was stable, all those symptoms, the cycles eased up, all those things corrected. And it was because, I hesitate to say it was because of all the healthy foods she was eating, but it was because of all the healthy foods that she was eating that were not digesting correctly. So I don't demonize food. I don't demonize food, but I hope that story helps illustrate that it was a good thing in a wrong circumstance.
Yeah, for sure. So we have a final question here. Thanks for this info today. Well, thank you for joining us. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
So how much is the testing you mentioned? Is it available by asking a certain kind of practitioner?
That's such a good question. So we offer this within our program, and we would love to have anyone listening with us live or anyone listening to the replay to come and work with us. What we do, I have a program, it's called the Healthy Thyroid System. We help women who have tried all of the things, who have done all the other testing and aren't getting results. We help you, like I said, by getting you in the program, starting with this specific testing, getting you a targeted protocol. We have a couple different levels of testing, and we have different testing options. So what I recommend doing is to book a call with my team, and we can talk through what you're experiencing, what you've tried, and talk about the shortest path for you to get these answers. So how you can do that is go to thyroidhotline.com, and you'll see a little book a call tab on that page. Book a call, chat with my team. Let's get you the direction that you need. But to answer the other piece of that question, wait, what was the second piece? Oh, the doctors.
Oh,
yes. If you go to your medical doctor and you ask for the organic acids test, they're going to look at you sideways and wonder why you're asking that. I know, because I've done it just for fun. The organic acids test does exist in Western medicine, but it checks for like 9 markers, and it's designed for ruling out genetic conditions and for diabetes, severe diabetes complications. So they're going to look at you sideways and say, what? And I've had women who have asked their doctors for that, hoping to save a little bit money, have insurance do it. And then they'll get back those 9 markers, and their doctors will say, you're fine. You don't have diabetes, and you don't have these genetic conditions. I don't know why you wanted me to test that. So that's the difference between the one that's available in Western medicine and what we have in functional medicine, is what the markers look for. So like I was saying earlier, our markers look for a whole bunch of other different things that Western medicine doesn't have. So yes. And you can ask a functional medicine practitioner for this. Absolutely. A lot of doctors have, a lot of functional medicine doctors have access to this. What's important is working with someone who knows how to apply those results to your case.
For sure.
Good stuff. Any more questions?
Nope, that's it for today.
Okay, well, thank you, ladies who joined, and thank you for ladies who are listening. We appreciate all of you. It's such a joy to have these conversations and to know that you're not alone in this. You are not alone. We've been through this. There are women everywhere still going through it. And it's a blessing to chat with you and to hear your experience. So if you want more information, please head to my website, www.thyroidhotline.com. You'll see there a chance to book a call with my team, learn more about our programs, how we can help you. And we would love to see you in the healthy thyroid system. Thank you
Absolutely.
all. Thanks, Stacey.
Okay.
Bye for now.